Sims Nation, welcome to another episode of the Positively Pat Sims Show. And shockingly enough, folks, this could be the last episode of the Positively Pat Sims Show, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here on WANT Radio and live streaming right here on YouTube. Guys, if you're watching us live, make sure you jump into that live chat and let us know you're here. Say hello. And we have a poll going on right now in the live chat, and it is, what is Brock Lesnar's most impressive accomplishment? Is it his NCAA championship? Is it that he's the youngest WWE champion of all time? Is it making the NFL preseason, or is it his UFC heavyweight championship reign? I think, Benny, it's frozen on your end. I'm not seeing any issues on mine. Is anybody else seeing any issues on theirs? No, we're good. All right, so maybe just try restarting. But, yeah, we should be good. Everything should be good good here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do have if you guys in the special guest in the Zoom call, if you could do me a favor and mute your mics for me, because I'm getting a echo. There is somebody's, because there is a slight delay. There we go. All good now. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to make a very quick announcement before we jump into our show today. And the very quick announcement is basically this. All right. I said that this could be the last Positively Pat Sims show that we do. And here's why I say that. It's not that we're going away, ladies and gentlemen, but we are rebranding to an all-new name, which is Ringside Revolution with Positively Pat Sims. So the channel name is going to be changing. And Warriors Unleashed, At the Movies, and Game Night are all getting their own YouTube channel, so that this one specifically focuses on pro wrestling. That's right. This is going to be a pro wrestling exclusive channel. Warriors Unleashed is going to air live going forward on Facebook. At the Movies will air this Tuesday live on its own YouTube channel. And Game Night will be up and running very, very soon. So I'm very, very excited about the future of all of our Positively Pat Sims shows. And the best news is nothing about our social media will change. Everything is still under Positively Pat Sims, and you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. All right, so very, very exciting time. There's a lot of moving pieces, and I'm very, very excited for this new journey, this new adventure that we're going to be on. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, today we are putting the entire career of one of the most unusual, one of the most dominant, controversial, and accomplished athletes in professional wrestling history under our pro wrestling spotlight. And that is the man who just recently announced his retirement on the Pat McAfee show. I am talking about the Beast, Brock Lesnar. And for the next couple of hours here, we're going for the amateur wrestling mats to Ohio Valley Wrestling, from the fastest rise to the WWE Championship we'd ever seen to a shocking exit, an NFL gamble, a UFC heavyweight championship, a return that changed the WWE, the end of the greatest streak in WrestleMania history, two unforgettable destructions of WWE's favorite GOAT, John Cena, and finally, the last chapter of this storied career against the ruler, Oba Femi. And joining me for this very special live discussion are three of our favorite guests here on the Positively Pat Sims show. First, he is a DDPY warrior. He is an instructor in training. He is a pro wrestler in training. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Chris the Void Hall. Welcome to the show, Chris. Oh, you didn't unmute yourself, sir.
I didn't unmute myself there, no. Good morning. Good to be on the show. It seems like I'm wearing yet another, what will be a vintage design here soon. I'm going to have to get a new shirt.
It'll be a collector's item.
Right.
That'll be the fun part. All right. And next up, he is a fellow WANT radio show host. He has several podcasts. He is a frequent guest on the program. He's a good friend. He is the most celebrated prognosticator of prognosticators. He is the most prepped and ready guest in the history of pro wrestling shows and podcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Benny the Jet Scala. Good morning, Benny. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, and I would just like to say that every Saturday is just like a vacation because I get to spend it right here at Sims Nation.
Boom. Boom. Love it. All right, and last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, he is the star of one episode of The Price is Right. He is the Diamond Standard. He has multiple albums available across multiple streaming platforms. He is the one, the only, the man with the power, too sweet to be sour. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Doc Heywood. Welcome, Doc.
It's a great day to be here. Dr. Heywood in the house, ready to talk about the Beast, or as I knew him when I was watching religiously, the next big thing. Now, I guess just the big thing because he's retired.
Right.
Brock Lesnar.
Oh, man. This is going to be interesting. Now, just for a point of fact, folks, we're not delving into anything that we don't know as fact. All right? We're not going to go into a lot of the dirt right now. We're focusing on the actual career of the Beast Brock Lesnar because it is impressive in and of itself, and there is some controversy even in the career aspect of it. So we're going to get into that. And because this show right now is live, the YouTube chat is part of this panel. And I want to tell us where you're watching from. Hit that like button, share the stream with a wrestling fan that you know, and give us your first answer in the live chat right now. Now, we do have a poll going on, so make sure you get your vote in the poll. But I want you to answer this question here. What is one word that best defines Brock Lesnar? Dominant? Is it legitimate, attraction, unpredictable, maybe something else entirely? I'm going to ask my special guest first. I didn't warn them about this one. But what's one word that comes to mind, ladies and gentlemen, when you hear the words Brock Lesnar? Doc, what do you got?
Oh, he's a monster.
Monster.
That's all I could say about him. Like a legit monster. The physique, the power, the in-ring ability. He's a horror show for any opponent.
All right, so we got Beast. We've got Monster. Benny, what's one word that comes to mind when you think of Brock Lesnar?
Unbelievable.
That's a great one. Big Arse Farmer. That's 3 words. And it keeps getting retracted. All right, Chris, what do you got for me? What's one word that comes to mind?
Explosive.
Explosive. That's a good one. That is a good one. I like freak. Freak, I think, is a good word for Brock. Okay, so you changed it to Big Arse Farmer, but put all the words together. So, okay, I see what you did there. All right, well done. All right. Our central question today is this. Is Brock Lesnar perhaps the greatest crossover athlete that professional wrestling has ever seen? And that's a huge statement considering we've had some of the world's strongest men. We've had Olympic athletes. We've got Kurt Angle, an Olympic gold medalist. So this is going to be a very interesting question for us to think about. Greg, welcome to the show. Greg says, too bad we never got an arm wrestling contest with Brock and Mark Henry. I think Mark would have won that one. I don't know. Like, Brock is freakishly strong, but I think Mark trains power-wise, and I think Mark's overall stronger. I think Mark would have won that. But, I mean, Brock is a freak, but, yeah, I think Mark would have taken that one. All right, so did WWE's decision to present him as a rare, almost untouchable attraction make the business better, or did it come at too high a cost? And let's begin before WWE, because Brock Lesnar was already extraordinary before most wrestling fans had ever heard his name. And Brock Lesnar's story did not begin with entrance music, pyrotechnics, or Paul Heyman. It began with a farm kid from South Dakota who developed into an elite amateur wrestler. At Bismarck State College, he became a two-time junior college All-American and won the 1998 NJCAA Heavyweight Championship. He then transferred to the University of Minnesota, finished as the NCAA runner-up in 1999, and won the NCAA Division I Heavyweight National Championship in 2000. His overall collegiate record was an incredible 106 wins and only 5 losses. Now, that background matters because it gave Brock something that cannot be manufactured by music, lighting, or booking: immediate physical credibility. When he walked into a wrestling ring, the audience did not have to pretend he was dangerous. They could see it. Now, I want to get to my special guest here. Doc, let's start with you. When you look at the amateur resume alone, what does it tell you about Brock Lesnar's athletic ceiling before he ever entered professional wrestling?
Oh, well, it shows that the sky was the limit for this young man when he was young. I mean, total dominance at collegiate wrestling like that is just unheard of. And then you look at him, a physical specimen like that. It's a combination of training and preternatural talent that just, if you're Vince McMahon back in the day, you are salivating to get this guy in your business.
Right.
It's one of the things that goes around in wrestling circles is pro wrestling circles is, pro wrestling may be fake, but I'm going to make you believe that I am real. And you look at Brock Lesnar and you're like, yeah, this guy's real. You step into the ring with him, predetermined outcome or not, you're going to be paying the price to face this monster. As I said before, he's a monster.
Right. All right, Benny, your question for you: how much did Brock's real wrestling background affect the way that fans accepted him as this monster?
Well, first off, I'm going to have to get a dictionary and look up preternatural, whatever the hell Doc said. That's a great word. Now, I agree with everything Doc said. Those are great comments. And yeah, to a certain extent, I mean, obviously his qualifications, preceded himself. I actually lived in Minnesota in 2000, and there was a show called the PA and Duvet Show. It was Paul Allen, who now I think is a play-by-play announcer for the Vikings. And he had this guy named Brock Lesnar, who was the NCAA collegiate wrestling champion. And even then, I mean, I'm thinking like, man, this guy's got a chip on his shoulder. And I thought to myself, this guy would be a natural for the WWE. And I mean, of course, the rest is history. But but that alone, I mean, just the qualifications. Because I'm going to give you a couple of names of NCAA champions who were in the WWE. And they didn't. It didn't happen for him. One, I don't know if you guys remember Sylvester Terkay. He was kind of a flop. And the other one, a little bit more recent, was Gable Stevenson. He went absolutely nowhere. Other ones, a little bit back in the day, Brad Reingens, who wrestled in the AWA. He wasn't a flop, but he wasn't a main eventer either. And Bob Roop, very decorated Olympic wrestler, collegiate wrestler back in the 70s. And the guy had the charisma of a meatloaf wearing a singlet. So there was just something very special about Brock Lesnar.
All right. And Chris, my question for you is, was his amateur success more important to his future than his actual size and look, or was it the full-on combination of the two?
I would say that it was a combination of the two. Just because coming at it from my perspective as a kid watching this, I was 15 or so, 14 or so when he debuted. I had absolutely no idea who he was. I wasn't following athletic NCAA careers or the Vikings or anything like that at the time. So all I knew was this presence that was being introduced into the WWE. And I'll tell you, just presence alone, without knowing anything about him, you look at the guy and you're like, the word I chose, explosive. From the gate, you see him and you're just like, I don't know if people like Big Show or Mark Henry can stop this thing. Like,
right.
You right away, you're just like, this guy is physically incredible. So I would say, accolades-wise, it would be a combination of both.
Right. Because when we're talking about some of these other guys that I'm going to mention here, a lot of it is just the background. Right?
Yeah.
Because let's talk about this. Like, his legitimate resume is, you can put right up there. I mean, number one, we always tend to think legitimacy. We think Kurt Angle, right? But there's a lot of other guys, even guys like Ken Patera is a legit guy. He's a legit Olympic athlete. But you've got Shelton Benjamin, Jack Swagger, which the less said, the better at this point. Chad Gable, the current Intercontinental Champion. Bobby Lashley in AEW. And there's other real wrestlers and athletes and power, world's strongest men like Mark Henry who entered sports entertainment. But I think Brock was probably, of all of them, the most complete package. Now, the only thing missing for Brock, though, that Kurt had, I'll say, was Kurt had the personality. Kurt could play the mean Olympic champion. He could play the comedy act and stuff. Now, Brock developed that, I think, over time, but Paul Heyman was definitely needed for Brock, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But before we do, let's jump into our next segment for Brock. Because WWE signed Brock Lesnar in 2000 and assigned him to Ohio Valley Wrestling in Louisville, Kentucky. OVW was not television-ready WWE. It was a workshop where prospects learned timing, character, promos, live event discipline, and how to turn athletic ability into professional wrestling. This was NXT before NXT, but on a much smaller scale. And Brock reunited with his University of Minnesota teammate Shelton Benjamin, and together they became the Minnesota Stretching Crew and won OVW Tag Team Championships. Around them was a developmental class that would help define the ruthless aggression era. Now I'm talking about John Cena, Randy Orton, Batista, and others. Very few training systems have ever produced that much top-level talent at the same time. Now, Benny, when you look back at that OVW class, was Brock clearly the can't-miss prospect? Or could you have reasonably predicted that Cena, Orton, or Batista would ultimately have the bigger WWE careers?
No, I think, to me, the only clear blue chipper was Randy Orton because of his pedigree. The guy's a third generation superstar.
Yeah.
Cena, the prototype in OVW, a relative unknown. He wrestled, I believe, in California for about a year and then came to OVW. Batista was what, Leviathan.
Yep.
I mean, the guy had a phenomenal look, but didn't really have the mic skills yet. And Brock was, like I said, Brock definitely had the credentials, as far as his collegiate wrestling career. But like I said in the previous answer, a lot of guys come, maybe not with quite their resume, but pretty darn close, and they fizzle out. So I'm going to say that, although it was, probably a good bet that he was going to succeed, I'm going to say that, to me, the clear blue chipper and the one most likely, in the yearbook, most likely to succeed, I'm going to say that was Randy Orton.
All right. I mean, I can't disagree with that. I mean, when you look at that class and you look at their performance in OVW, go back and look, John Cena, Batista, Brock still finding their way for the most part, while Randy seemed like he already knew what he was doing and looked good doing it. Doc, what do you think teaming with Shelton Benjamin gave Brock during his developmental period?
That's an interesting question. I would guess two like-minded guys working together with similar backgrounds but very different physiques and physicality. It's gonna teach you where the chinks in your armor are, where you need to improve your game and what strengths you have, because these two guys are going to be working a lot together, and they're going to be able to communicate in the same language and spot things that you probably wouldn't be able to communicate to them otherwise. So I think it was very, very important to be working with Shelton Benjamin. It teaches you to work with someone else. Tag teams, there's a very unique kind of brotherhood that is formed in that. Two guys like this coming out of the collegiate wrestling system, that's something that you can't manufacture or fabricate with someone who doesn't have that kind of background.
Right. And Chris, Brock was called up quickly. Do you think he was ready when he came up as a performer, or was WWE right to build around his strengths and let him lean on the main roster?
I think that Brock didn't have to be ready.
Yeah.
I think that the history now has shown us that he developed his readiness through Paul Heyman and through the course of his career, as you've even already previously mentioned. He got better and better as a character and on the mic as he developed that.
Right.
But as I mentioned, just out of the gate, looking at him, he didn't have to pick up a mic. He just had to eat people.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point. He didn't have to be a full, complete package when he made his arrival. He just had to come in and make an impact. And that's exactly what he did. Going to the live chat here, Eric Porter, welcome to the show. Brock had 2 WWE careers, first as a legitimate NCAA champ and second as a UFC guy. So, yes, you can see that even the presentation of Brock changed when he came back. He was still Brock, and you could still see the elements of Brock, but a lot of how he was presented was changed. How he did his interviews changed. He also said, I think Shelton was his coach, not teammate. WWE said teammate for kayfabe purposes. So basically, the idea was that they were put together so that Shelton could coach him in the ways of pro wrestling, which makes sense. Cena was the best of the bunch as far as WWE career was concerned. I don't think any of us are arguing really that at this point. We did talk about Cena a lot a couple weeks ago on our Pro Wrestling Hot Takes show, but I think it's always a great debate whenever you get talking about who had the better this or that, because it's all subjective. Pro wrestling is no exception. It's all subjective. Any sport is. I got people coming up to me that'll tell me that Joe Montana is the greatest quarterback to ever live, and then I got another group that says that it's Tom Brady, and another group says that it's this guy or this guy. And it's like, well, they're all great. It's just, if you think they're the best, run with it. Complete your collection of collectibles based on your favorite. All right. Get your tattoo of him. Go to town. All right. Brock's greatest early strength, I think, was believability. His greatest early challenge was his mic skills. Now, Paul Heyman would soon become the perfect answer to that challenge. And the OVW period establishes an important theme for our entire show here. Lesnar was not developed to be a conventional weekly wrestler. He was developed to feel different. Lesnar was an attraction. And we've talked about attractions on the show, and a lot of times attractions can be misused. They can be overused, which can affect their ability to really wow an audience. Remember, like I talked about very, very loudly in our last show, that I felt Danhausen is a perfect example of an attraction that is being overused, that is being shoved, the proverbial shoved down our throats argument. That's just my opinion, but I'm allowed to have it. All right, let's get into the next big thing. But before we do, really quickly, guys, I have to do some business here from time to time. And I do still have my books, Vengeance, which are available exclusively on Amazon. And, of course, the sequel, Vengeance, Blood of the Cross, available on Kindle, paperback, and hardcover. Both books are also available for free to read if you have a Kindle Unlimited subscription. So make sure you get on over to Amazon and check out our Vengeance books under Positively Pat Sims. Now, we're going to examine now one of the fastest and most dominant rookie year pushes WWE has ever attempted, including the night Brock Lesnar defeated none other than The Rock to become the youngest WWE champion in history at that time. Good morning, Grandmaster. I didn't think you were going to be on the show today, but thank you so much for jumping in. I got your message earlier. I responded to it. But I just want to remind everyone you are listening on WANT to the Positively Pat Sims show, as well as watching here live on YouTube. All right. So in March of 2002, Brock Lesnar exploded onto WWE television with Paul Heyman at his side. The presentation was simple and, in my opinion, brilliant. Do not ask Brock to be a polished entertainer before he was ready. Let Heyman do the talking for him, and let Brock destroy everyone. And teach the audience that this newcomer was not operating under normal rules. His first official WWE match came against Jeff Hardy at Backlash. He then ran through the 2002 King of the Ring tournament, earning a championship opportunity at SummerSlam. Only months after his arrival, Lesnar defeated The Rock and became the youngest WWE champion in company history at that time. He was only 25 years old. That rise was not gradual. WWE did not ask fans to imagine that what Brock might become in 3 years. The company told the audience that the future had already arrived and then booked him to prove it. Eric Porter says, to be fair, they sped up Brock's push due to The Rock leaving for Hollywood. Angle had the absolute best rookie year. Again, Eric, it's all kind of debatable, right? You can look at Angle's rookie year, and Angle did very well because he was great across the board, but it's hard to argue Brock's dominance because we're not even a year in, and he is the champ. And that meant that WWE felt that Brock could be a legitimate champion that looked like a champion, even at that early stage. And whether The Rock was leaving for Hollywood or not, we don't know if maybe they would have still pulled the trigger on it. If you look at the audience was, at that point, firmly behind Brock winning the title. So, UFC heavyweight champion Isaac Delgado, welcome to the show. Thank you for voting in our live chat vote. Grandmaster says, Eric, Brock was in Vikings training camp and was on their third practice squad and was the first one cut when they started making cuts. But Grandmaster still doesn't take away from the idea that, I mean, you even talk to the Vikings players themselves, and we'll get there. Brock got his chance, got his moment there, and it's still an accomplishment. Whether you think it was a major one or not, none of us are getting up and walking onto the Minnesota Vikings training camp and they're going to go, oh, come on in. Brock was able to do that, and not just because he's Brock Lesnar. I mean, they felt that he had the opportunity to potentially make an impact on the team. Chris, you're right here on the screen. I want to ask you, is Brock Lesnar's 2002, as we're talking about here, do you think it's the greatest rookie year in WWE history, or do you agree with Eric Porter that maybe it was Kurt Angle?
Well, I would say that as far as rookie year, just to go back to my word explosive, there was just nobody that came into the WWE that just right off the bat, you knew there was not going to be someone that was going to go up against him that was going to have that explosive physique that he does. Kurt Angle had a great first year. I mean, I remember his first year. I remember never hearing of him before, and then all of a sudden he's just in the front main light, and he's in the middle of all the promos because he's got the mic skills and everything like that. But I don't remember being intimidated by Kurt Angle. I remember Kurt Angle just being another guy on the roster, and then earned his place. But Brock didn't have to earn his place. Brock showed up with his place. So I would say that it's a good argument to make, and I actually had to think about my answer for a second there based on what Eric said, because again, it's a great debate, but I still lean on that I think that it's hard to find a comparison to Brock's first year based on the way they presented him.
And another thing I would mention, Chris, in this is how many times was Brock, or what? Or let me just say, how many times was Brock ever fed to anybody who was an incoming wrestler, or to get somebody over during his rookie year? And I would think the answer is no. Is there anybody you can think of? Okay, because here's why I say that, because Kurt Angle was. If you remember very famously in 2000 at the Royal Rumble, Kurt Angle was fed to Taz.
Mm-hmm.
So, I rookie year wise, I don't know. To me, it wasn't. I mean, it was good. Don't get me wrong. And Kurt Angle's had a fantastic career. But if we're just talking about that rookie season, I'll take my money on Brock, because nobody was going to come in and embarrass Brock or bury Brock. It was the other way around. I mean, you got Stone Cold quit the company over it. Yeah. Oh, I mean, that was the final straw.
One of the biggest accolades, if you remember, in his early career was the fact that he was able to F5 the Big Show.
Right. Yeah. And Grandmaster, I want to mention something. He said, Grandmaster put a comment out here, and I want to address it real quick. He says many wrestlers in the 60s to the 90s were former cuts from pro football and had successful wrestling careers. That's very true. Goldberg came from pro football. A lot of guys came from pro football. But how many guys did the reverse? That's a stat I would like to see. How many guys got into pro wrestling and then went to go become NFL football players and even got the opportunity to do it? The Rock was in the Canadian Football League. Most wrestlers start as former pro athlete or former athletes. A lot of them, a lot of successful ones, were former pro athletes in some way, shape, or form. Or they just got hurt, they couldn't make it, they got into pro wrestling, whatever the case may be. But how many guys got into pro wrestling, became huge, successful stars, main evented WrestleMania, and then went over and tried their hand at NFL? I'm not going to bash the guy because he didn't make the team. It is an accomplishment to do that, and more power to him. If you have a goal in life, and Chris, you know all about this. You got a goal, you have something you want to do, get out there and do it. To me, I was like, dude, Brock, go get it, brother. Go do it. But Doc, I want to go to you. How essential was Paul Heyman to making the act work this quickly as the diamond standard, as the voice of any show that you're on? Doc, how important was Paul Heyman to this act?
Paul Heyman is really the last great pro wrestling manager, in my opinion, and so essential for helping build the mystique of Brock Lesnar. When someone like Brock comes in, just this big monster, this massive wall of meat, this intimidating presence, ideally, unless he has top tier mic skills, you want him to be quiet. You remember when Goldberg came into WCW, he didn't say anything.
Yep.
And it developed this aura of mystique around him. And that was a good thing because Goldberg sucks on the mic,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So you get Brock Lesnar. If he doesn't have the mic skills, which I'll say Brock is probably not the best on the mic, that's one of his big weaknesses. You pair him with someone like Paul Heyman, who can talk better than anybody, present company excluded. It's just gonna shoot him to the moon. Paul Heyman was just that missing piece of the puzzle that really just it completed the picture. Now you've got this intimidating presence and the last great mouthpiece in pro wrestling telling everyone what the score is. I think any wrestler with Paul Heyman in their corner is going to do great. But an intimidating presence like Brock Lesnar, it keeps the aura of mystique, the aura of mystery around this monster, but you can still have that mouthpiece that's going to put over the opponent, because in a promo, that's what you want to do. You want to put over the opponent and say, yeah, you're really good, but this guy is exceptional. This guy is something else, something different. And you might as well just give up now, because if you get in the ring with him, you're going to get destroyed. And that's what Paul Heyman did every week, week in and week out on the mic for Brock Lesnar.
Now, Benny, I talked about the crowd reaction to when Brock Lesnar defeated The Rock at SummerSlam. Was beating The Rock the perfect coronation? And how important was that Long Island crowd's reaction that night?
Yeah, I'm glad it happened there, right in my backyard. I went to many cards at the Coliseum, in fact, every month in the late '70s. And I want to underscore what Doc just said about the value of a great manager, a great promo, because you don't want to trash. I mean, you want to trash your opponent maybe on a personal basis, but you don't want to trash his abilities, because if you beat him, then what did you really accomplish? You have to build him up to enough to that when you do win the match, you've accomplished something. So
right.
that was a good point by Doc. But yeah, the Coliseum crowd was epic. I watched the match a couple of days ago, and even though Rock was the babyface, there was a lot of applause for Brock Lesnar, and to me, kudos to The Rock for helping. I think he helped elevate Brock tremendously. Yeah, and it's so nice to see 24 years later that Brock is doing the same thing with Obafemi. Just, I don't think Obafemi is the next big thing without Brock. So yeah, it was a momentous occasion. Youngest world champion ever. Young, I believe the quickest ever to win a championship after their first appearance on WWE TV. So
Right.
just great all around.
Yeah, I remember. Like it was a big deal back in 1990 into 91. Undertaker wins the title a year after his appearance, and we were like, "Wow, that was quick." Right? And Brock did it in half the time.
Right.
It was pretty meteoric. Well, that takes us into the champion, the shooting star that we'll talk about, and eventually the walkout that we all remember. And Brock won the 2003 Royal Rumble and challenged Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. The match is remembered for a great heavyweight title performance and for Brock's attempted shooting star press. He under-rotated, landed dangerously, suffered a concussion, and still completed the match and won the WWE Championship. It's definitely one of those moments that we say might not happen today. They might have stopped it today as opposed to letting these guys continue. But later that year, the Lesnar-Angle rivalry produced a 60-minute Iron Man match on television, on SmackDown, with Brock winning 5 falls to 4 to capture his third WWE Championship. By any normal standard, Brock's first 2 years were historic. Yet by early 2004, the relationship was crumbling. At WrestleMania 20, both Brock Lesnar and Goldberg were known to be leaving. The internet was starting to pick up a little steam, and word was getting out at this point. And the Madison Square Garden crowd absolutely rejected both stars in what was a pitiful match, and I felt bad for Stone Cold being a part of it. But then Lesnar walked away after just 2 years at only 26 years old. Doc, what was the first thing you remember about Lesnar versus Angle at WrestleMania 19? Is it the quality of the match? Is it, unfortunately, that shooting star press? Is it the finish? What is it about that match that you remember most?
Unfortunately, it is that shooting star press. At the time, I was working as an apartment manager, and at the apartment complex we had a projector screen, and so we put WrestleMania up on the projector screen. We had a pretty good crowd, and I was champing at the bit to see these two guys go at it. You've got an Olympic pro wrestler against this collegiate monster. This is the kind of stuff as a wrestling fan you want to see. Like can the Olympian beat this collegiate wrestler who doesn't have the accolades that Angle does, but physically is just a beast of a monster, and a great match up until that shooting star press, but that stole the show because I thought Lesnar had killed or paralyzed himself.
Right.
Anyone else, they land like that, yeah, they're probably dead or in a wheelchair for the rest of their life. But Lesnar's such a physical specimen, only concusses himself. I mean, that's a testament to Brock's body and his strength. So yeah, that's my main takeaway from that match. I would argue anyone else, if that was the only time you saw that match, that's all you're taking away from it. It was like, oh my gosh, that's like the worst botch I've ever seen. Holy smokes. And being legit concerned for the guy and then seeing him get up and go, oh my God, he's going to finish this match. That's insane.
Yeah. And I unfortunately, for everything Brock's done in this business, that move might be forever etched as the most replayed, the most viewed moment of his career.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. Benny, this question might seem a little weird, but when I was doing my research, this was actually something that came up where a lot of people felt that before Brock left WWE, that there was a period where he was starting to become a little stale, that they thought that his character was kind of spinning his wheels a little bit and he wasn't progressing anymore. Do you think WWE did enough creatively with Brock after his rise, or did you think the character was starting to lose direction before he left?
No, I mean, I believe that Brock's greatest value is as an attraction. And of course, I'm a numbers guy, and not counting UFC, but counting OVW. In his career, he wrestled 450 matches, and 353 of them were up till when he walked out in 2004. So in the last 22 years, he's only wrestled 97 times, and I believe that is his greatest value, is as an attraction.
Right.
I never felt like I've had too much Brock Lesnar. I mean, he wrestled in 2003. He wrestled 136 times. He won the WWE title twice. So now he's got 3 OVW tag team titles. He's already got 3 world championships, and the guy's 27 years old. You said, amazing. I kind of, when it happened, I was not really a big fan of him having to drop the title to Eddie Guerrero, because to me it just was not believable. But I mean, in retrospect, it definitely made Eddie Guerrero a made man, and it didn't hurt Brock at all. I mean, Brock, I think pretty much I don't remember any single loss that really damaged his legacy at all.
Right. And I agree with you, where I think that especially as Brock Lesnar would go off and do his other stuff and become UFC champ and everything, I think he definitely became even more of what you said, an attraction. And I get the fact that people have complained over the years about the WWE champ being a part-timer. But what I think a lot of people maybe tend to forget sometimes is that we have been a little spoiled over the years with, when we got into the television era of guys being on our TV, not so much television era, but especially when we got into Raw and Nitro kicked in, and now everybody had to be on the show every week to keep drawing bigger and bigger viewers. You had title matches on Raw, and then you had SmackDown. You had title matches on SmackDown. And when I was growing up, title matches were like real, legit title matches were big events. They were your SummerSlam main events, and even then they weren't, but they were WrestleMania main events. They were big deals. And Hogan didn't appear on every show. I could legitimately go like a month without seeing Hogan on my television doing anything of substance. They might show him, just to remind you, oh, by the way, this is our champ, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan didn't have to be on TV every week, but I mean, it is what it is. We'll get there a little bit later. But Chris, at the time, do you think for Brock leaving WWE was perhaps a reckless decision? We know that Brock hated being on the road. He hated the travel and all that stuff. What do you think?
I have a weird opinion about this just because I think I was too outside of the behind the scenes and I was a little bit too young to have a real opinion on this. But my personal opinion on it was only based on what I saw on TV. I was at a point where what I knew about pro wrestling is what they showed me. I know behind the scenes or motivations or anything like that. And on camera, the person I saw as Brock Lesnar at that time, the person they were showing me, I'll tell you what, when he was leaving the WWE and deciding to go to UFC and do other things, I personally didn't like the guy. I went to high school with guys like that. I played football with guys like that. And when you become that big that quickly and that much of an attraction, I think that got to the man's head a little bit, the person behind Brock Lesnar. And I think he legitimately thought that, at least the person that he portrayed on TV, was that his stuff don't stink. And that he is granted everything that he is granted when he shows up. He has that inherent right. And he portrayed that as a person. And so when he was actually just talking in the UFC and stuff like that, I just consistently was like, this guy is nothing but a big crybaby. It took me a long time after he came back to the WWE, and now that he's older and the person that he is now, for me to respect his maturity and his development and his growth. Because at the time, I was like, no, UFC can keep him. If he's just going to be that kind of a person on TV, I don't even want to watch him.
Well, the New York crowd at WrestleMania 20 would have agreed with you, because they were not giving him any positive accolades on his way out the door. And Brock made his feelings felt right in return on his way out. And Brock, I mean, there's a lot of returns in pro wrestling that have shocked people. And Brock has had two of them. Mm-hmm. Not one, but two.
Yeah.
Right? when we thought we'll never see Brock in WWE again, for whatever reason, there he is. And you're like, okay. It's actually pretty crazy that, because I felt like Brock kept burning bridges.
Yeah.
He everywhere. It's just like, it. And I don't know how much of it, like in UFC, I definitely think there was some real Brock there, but I still think he brought some of that showman with him. But I don't know. It is just kind of funny to me that you look at Vince McMahon, and for all the things that you could say negative or positive about Vince McMahon, the guy did not like leaving money on the table. And he will forgive and forget if it means that we're putting money back on, that we're putting money in the pockets there. Ultimate Warrior, Bret Hart, all these guys have, even though Bret's still bitter, and the bitterness of Bret could be a show in and of itself, and it would be very entertaining just to go through all the things that Bret has said over the years. But the fact that they've all come back at some point, it's pretty crazy. Especially like we said, with the amount of bridges that have just been completely destroyed over the years by several guys, not just Brock. But before we move into our next segment here, as we come up towards the top of the hour, again, I just want to remind you guys that I don't just do these amazing shows. I do other stuff, like Catching Stars, my original music album. I'm currently working on my second one. We're a little behind schedule with production, but everything's going well that we've done. But Catching Stars is the first one we put out. It's available across all major streaming platforms, including Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora, and more. And while you're there, and while you're checking out Catching Stars and adding it to your favorites and maybe buying it on Amazon or buying it on YouTube, do me a favor and look up our buddy Doc Heywood, because Doc Heywood has got music on those streaming platforms. And then check out Benny, because Benny has got music up across platforms. So do yourself a favor. All of us here on the Positively Pat Sim Show, we've got skills and talents you know nothing about. So get out there and check them out. Chris is going to be flying onto your television screen sooner than later when he becomes the next big thing himself. And Chris, I got to say this real quick before we move on. Chris, you are much taller than I thought you were. How tall are you?
Oh, that's just the fallacy of my torso, man. I'm 5'10".
Are you really?
But if I sit in a car, my head touches the ceiling, because from my butt to the top of my head is unproportionately long and my legs are unproportionally short. I don't have a lap and I can palm the bottom of my feet.
Wow.
My torso is freakishly tall compared to my legs.
Well, here's why I said that, because so you're pretty much my height then. But here's the thing. I have pictures of me standing next to Diamond Dallas Page, and I come up to, like, here's his shoulder, right? I saw a picture of you standing next to DDP, and whoever was your cameraman, give him some money, because they made you look like you were maybe an inch or two shorter than Dallas. And that was
Really?
pretty cool. Yeah, you looked like you were right on par with him. I was like, dude, that's cool.
Maybe it was that picture and that angle, because there was a series of pictures from that moment. I shared the series of pictures to another friend, and she told me, she was like, Dallas is so tall.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, he is.
Like your graduation picture looked a little more normal, but there's one where you're standing next to him.
The certificate picture, you can see that I'm like noticeably shorter than him.
Yeah, like one of my favorite pictures I ever took while I was at the performance center. It was Dallas and Jake. Both guys are really tall, and then there's me, and then there's me in the middle. It's like a reverse pyramid. It's just like I look like a child next to these two. But all right, guys, let's keep moving here. We're on a great pace here, so let's keep going. And in our next segment here, Brock bets on himself. Brock's next move sounded impossible. He wanted to try to make the NFL despite not playing football in college. He worked out as a defensive lineman, signed with the Minnesota Vikings, and appeared during the 2004 preseason. He did not make the regular season roster, but the attempt itself showed the level of confidence and stubbornness that defined his career. Now, Lesnar briefly returned to professional wrestling in Japan, where he won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in 2005. But the bigger reinvention came in mixed martial arts. After only one professional fight, Brock entered the UFC. He lost his UFC debut to Frank Mir, defeated Heath Herring, and then stopped Randy Couture at UFC 91 to win the UFC Heavyweight Championship in only his fourth professional MMA fight. He avenged the Mir loss at UFC 100, survived a terrifying first round against Shane Carwin, and became one of the biggest pay-per-view attractions in UFC history. Severe diverticulitis interrupted his prime. And if for those of you thinking that this is just some excuse to give Brock, I'm going to tell you firsthand, diverticulitis is no joke. It is the most painful thing that I've ever experienced. And I've had my total shoulder replacement. I've had kidney stones. I've had double hernias. Diverticulitis wiped me out. I couldn't move. I was in so much pain. I had to have surgery to remove a foot of my large intestine because of diverticulitis. It is no joke. Diverticulitis can be deadly. So I'm just making this very clear. This is not just some lame brain excuse to give Brock an out for losing some matches. If he was suffering through diverticulitis, one touch to the gut, you're done. All right? And he lost the title to Cain Velasquez, which I think he probably would have happened anyway. He was kind of overmatched in that one. The styles clashed and Cain overtook him. And then he retired after losing to Alistair Overeem and returned for one final UFC appearance in 2016. His official record stands at 5 wins, 3 losses, and 1 no contest. And Benny, I want to start with you. Which achievement is harder to comprehend? nearly making an NFL roster without any previous college and football experience, or winning the UFC heavyweight championship in just your 4th professional fight. And let's not forget, it's against a UFC Hall of Famer, Randy Couture.
Yeah, I mean, they're both incredible feats. I'm going to say that it's more impressive, but it's very, very close that he won the UFC heavyweight championship in his 4th fight. I mean, he was a trained collegiate wrestler, but he's also trained in work. Wrestling is a work, but not mixed martial arts. For him to just jump into that arena, that genre, and like you said, Randy Couture is an absolute legend. I mean, the only reason why I give that a slight edge is because he did have some high school football experience, but I think he graduated high school in 1995. So he hadn't been on a football field in 9 years.
Right.
And to do that and just, the Minnesota Vikings and actually play well enough to be on their practice squad. Yeah, I mean, he didn't play a regular season game. The fact that he had a uniform, I mean, it speaks volumes. I'm going to say very, very close. That I'm going to give the nod to UFC Heavyweight Championship.
All right. Chris, did Brock's UFC success permanently change how wrestling fans and yourself view him during his return to WWE?
I would say it wasn't his UFC run specifically, at least for me. It took Paul Heyman in his second run for me to believe the greatness in Brock Lesnar. Because I'll be real honest, my appreciation for Brock Lesnar is real recent. And I would say it's the Obafemi run, and the last couple of appearances where he has become a lot more of a humble person. Because even when he returned the second time after the UFC to the WWE, even though he's a great attraction, I was still salty about the "my stuff don't stink" attitude about Brock Lesnar. So the fact that he was an attraction just kept me going, oh gosh, like, okay, WWE's just trying to make money again. And so
yeah.
a person every time that he'd go up against Roman Reigns, I'd be like, okay, I want Roman to win. Or
right.
If he'd go up against John Cena, it's like, okay, I want John Cena. He gave me somebody to root for the other guy, because I absolutely just could not stand the person Brock Lesnar for the longest time. I appreciate his career now. I appreciate who he was, what he did for the company, what he represented, and how successful he was. You can't argue the man's success, the man's ability, the man's size, and his accolades. But I just wished his character outside of the ring was just a little bit more like what it is now. Honestly, like if Brock Lesnar was the person he is now through his whole career, personality-wise, I would have never had a problem with him. He had to grow a lot on me.
Doc, I want to throw this at you before I get to your actual question that I had for you. Just based on what Chris said, Brock's kind of attitude was a detriment to Chris's ability to get behind Brock. But, I mean, Brock, let's be fair, was playing the heel during the second run that we're going to get to. So if you want Cena to win or you want Roman to win, I think that's kind of accomplishing the goal in a sense. But do you think you kind of actually have to have that kind of attitude in the pro wrestling business? Because I've heard guys like Chris Jericho say, like, you got to be kind of an a-hole in this business. Like I think you've got to have at least some kind of an attitude in some sense, because otherwise, you got to get to that upper echelon, and sometimes you need that. Doc, what do you think about that idea?
You definitely need to have confidence in yourself. You do need to a certain degree, you need to be an a-hole just to protect your character, to protect your career. But at the same time, you also have to know when to turn it off. And that's generally in the backstage area, because I've worked with some guys who didn't know when to turn it off, in PCW, where it's like, hey, dude, you are you're pooping where you eat.
Right.
You've got people backstage who help you out, who are running the soundboard, who are running the Titantron, or in PCW the Heywood Tron. And when I was working with PCW, that was Lady Heywood, and one of the wrestlers didn't know when to turn it off around Lady Heywood, and would be kind of rude toward her. And she was like, "I don't like that guy. That guy's an a-hole." Now, it worked for him when he was out in front of the crowd. Total a-hole. The crowd hated him. A little bit too much what I would call cheap heat, where he would individually point to like a lady in the crowd and body shame her. And like, for me, that's not cool. You can generalize the crowd, or there's certain things you can say to the fans that can get you heat, but this guy didn't know when to turn it off. But I would say, like, with Lesnar, for me back in the day, I didn't hear too much about the backstage stuff, so all of his attitude and stuff, for me, it was kayfabe. This guy's doing what he needs to do as a heel. And when he left WWE, yeah, I was a little salty, but at the same time, you've got to take care of you. You got to take care of your career. And I understand burnout. I understand getting tired of the backstage politics and the drama. With that WrestleMania match, I was a little more upset with Goldberg, because I felt Goldberg never had the respect for the business that he ought to.
Right.
It just showed that match showed what a poor pro wrestler Goldberg is. That he's very much a one-trick pony when you put him up against someone like Brock Lesnar.
I want to welcome a man who needs cookies to the live chat, because you are, so far, you have the award for my favorite chat of the morning. I'll tell you what he said. I think I sharted, but I'm too afraid to get up and check.
Just sit and stew in it, Cookies.
Yeah.
Just sit and stew in it.
Oh my gosh.
Take a bath after the show.
That is, so ladies and gentlemen watching on YouTube in the live chat, that is your competition. If you want to win live chat of the day, that is what you have to beat right now. Oh man, I don't. That just,
those are my cookies.
Yeah. Who told you could eat my cookies?
My cookies.
Why do we?
Those cookies are for me.
We always find a way to get Arnold into these shows. Doc, real quick here. I did have a legit question for you too. Do you think the losses and the health issues that Brock suffered through, did that kind of humanize him to some people who may have viewed him as being this monster, this beast?
Not for me, because he's still, like, the fact that he even had the stones to get into the UFC was like, okay, yeah, if anyone can do it, this guy can do it. I was a little shocked that he lost his first match, but then he goes on this tear. Health issues. I mean, even Frankenstein's afraid of fire.
Right.
So monsters have their weaknesses. Superman has kryptonite. Brock Lesnar has diverticulitis.
Right. All All right, now let's keep moving here. Again, we're on a very good pace this morning. And now we get back to his return. And Chris has talked about some of the things he didn't like about Brock. We're going to get into my least favorite moment in Brock's whole career here. The night after WrestleMania 28 in 2002, Brock Lesnar returned to WWE and delivered an F5 to John Cena. The reaction was huge, but his first match back created an immediate debate. Brock Lesnar dominated the majority of the Extreme Rules fight, and yet John Cena won in what was supposed to be the downward spiral of John Cena that would lend him to wanting to get redemption against The Rock at WrestleMania 29. Some fans believe WWE had wasted Brock on that very first fight. Others thought the loss allowed Cena to survive without diminishing Lesnar's violence. But programs with Triple H and CM Punk followed. Then came WrestleMania 30. The Undertaker entered WrestleMania 30 with his streak intact at 21-0. Brock Lesnar hit a third F5. Now I want you to think about this, because back then, from what I understand, you were not allowed to hit more than 3, because that was like a rule Vince had. But 3 was unheard of at that time for F5s. 3 F5s, and the referee counted to 3, and an entire stadium of people went absolutely silent. The streak was over. I mean, I could just say that was the moment that I never hated Brock more than I did in that moment, and ever since. Now, 4 months later, at SummerSlam 2014, WWE completed the transformation. Lesnar did not merely beat John Cena for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, he dismantled him with repeated German suplexes and 2 F5s in one of the most shocking one-sided main events WWE had ever presented. Ending the streak made Brock the conqueror. Destroying Cena proved it was not a one-night story. Chris, I'm going to start with you. Should John Cena have defeated Brock in the 2012 return match? Now, I know you said, I'm sure you were rooting for Cena at that time, but hindsight being what it is, and maybe even at that time, did you think that was the right decision to make, or did that decision at that time delay Brock's full impact?
Well, one thing I'll say is the way I feel about it is that I honestly don't remember the match, if I'm being real. 2012 was long enough ago that Brock versus John Cena is a match that I can tell you happened in the record books.
Right.
But I don't remember any of the drama or anything around it. I do remember that Cena and Brock was obviously a physical match, because when both of them are put to the test of what they can do physically, they both have shown that they can do some pretty impressive stuff. So I do remember it being a physical match. But if we're talking about how it affected either man's career, we're in 2026 now, and let's take a look back at the career of both. If I, as a fan of John Cena, a pro wrestling fan of 30 years, and can appreciate Brock Lesnar, can look back at that match and say, I don't even remember it, then it's safe to say that that match didn't affect the impact of either man's career. That Cena is still whether you like WWE calling him the GOAT or not, or whether he is or not, is subjective. But,
right.
John Cena's the GOAT, and Brock Lesnar's the Beast, and that match didn't affect either one of them.
Yeah. I mean, in the long run, yes. I think So for me, I remember all of that time very vividly. My youngest son was a year old. I remember Brock's return. I remember the brawling that Cena and Lesnar were going through, but I also remember the story behind it. And this is where I get a little perturbed at pro wrestling sometimes, when the story and what happens in the ring don't line up, right? The story was John Cena had just lost to The Rock at WrestleMania 28. We were starting this downward spiral storyline that they even talked about when they built for WrestleMania 29 and said, oh, John Cena said, I was on this downward spiral. Really? Because I think a month later you defeated the Brock Lesnar in his return. Now, he got hurt, but he did get hurt during that match, but it just storyline-wise, I remember at the time, really bugged me. I'm like, so you got the returning Brock Lesnar, who just came off of a run as a UFC heavyweight champion, and Cena's coming off a loss at the time, the biggest WrestleMania ever, view-wise, and you're going to reverse it and make it that John Cena gets that win. It didn't work for me. I was so like, well, there went Brock's aura. And then Cena left because he got injured during that match. But to your point, long term, no, it didn't affect either one of them. The squash that Brock gave to Cena at WrestlePalooza at the end of the day didn't do anything either. Didn't diminish Cena's legacy. And if anything, it actually worked out the way they always wanted it to, which was make Brock dominant again, so that when he faces Oba Femi, Oba now looks like the big beast, the big monster. So there's a lot. That's the great thing about pro wrestling, about sports, about entertainment, life in general. Like, how we view things is so great. But I love hearing other people's opinions. I love debating. I love all that fun stuff. It's just so cool to do. Doc, let me ask you this. Was Brock Lesnar, you're the only man that I will ask this question to because I don't want to talk about it anymore. It hurts too deeply. Hurts! Because the streak should still be intact. I don't care. Roman shouldn't have gotten a win either. But was Brock the right person to end the Undertaker's streak?
No. And because it didn't help Brock's career, it didn't help the Undertaker's career, and it didn't help either of their legacy. Anytime this gets brought up, it's like, yeah, Brock beat the Undertaker. He ended the streak. It's never mentioned in a positive light. No one's like, oh my gosh, yeah, Brock Lesnar's the best because he ended the Undertaker streak. I think it hurt both of their careers. I think whenever it gets brought up, all that's talked about is the bad booking. And so, no, it wasn't good. If you're going to have someone end the Undertaker streak, you want it to be someone that it's going to help their career, where you're like, oh, yeah, this is the guy who did it. We didn't think he would ever be able to do it, but this guy did it. Amazing. And that didn't happen. It's brought up every single time in a negative connotation. So I say absolutely not. Never should have happened. Very, very big mistake on WWE's part.
I will say there's one correction I have to make, Doc, and that there was one person that always looks at it in a positive way, and that is Paul Heyman.
Well, of course, he's the advocate. That's his job. That is his job, is to bring that up. Yeah. He would be a very bad manager if he didn't. But the audience were always like, oh, okay, yeah, blah, blah, blah. we as the fans, with the smart fans, the not so smartened up fans, everybody, with the exception of Paul Heyman, gives it 2 thumbs down. I wish I had more hands so I could give it more thumbs down.
Right. And yeah, the streak. I mean, as biased as I am, an Undertaker fan, more as a wrestling fan, I would have liked to have seen the streak never end. If that meant that Taker and Brock don't wrestle at WrestleMania, hey, I don't care. But the streak, in my opinion, should have never been broken. And Chris makes a point in the live chat. He says the streak ending should have been his final match.
Agreed.
I think if the whole purpose of ending the streak is to skyrocket Brock Lesnar, I think it actually is more impactful if The Undertaker never comes back. The fact that he kept coming back was, I mean, if you guys haven't seen the Last Ride documentary, I don't know where it is. I don't know where you can find it. It used to be on Peacock and the WWE Network. I don't know where you can find it. I don't know if it's on Netflix or where. But it is a fantastic documentary. You got to watch it because it really shows this, you know, how a professional wrestler thinks. Why do these guys keep coming back for more? And it's because of pride, you know, and a love for the business where they're like, you know, and a love for their fans where they're like, I can't go out like that. Taker looked at that match with Brock and said, I don't remember it. He got concussed during the match. I don't want to go out like that. Right? He puts his gloves and everything in the ring against Roman Reigns and then goes back and watches the match, which was the worst thing he could have done, and went, oh, I can't go out like that. And he just kept doing that over and over because he was never satisfied until the Boneyard match, which, let's be real, that was a cool send-off. He didn't do what you're supposed to do on the way out, which is put somebody over. But we always talk about if there's one guy that deserved the right to go out with a win, it would be this guy. And, you know, you could make that case for The Undertaker. And again, I am a huge Undertaker mark. That's going to be and that's his name. That's going to be one of the tattoos that'll be added in tomorrow is going to be Taker. I still think there should have been a way for Taker to put somebody over on his way out, because if you're going to let Taker do that, then I agree with a lot of guys who complain about Cena. But I agree that you go out putting a guy over on your way out. Undertaker's Last Ride is on YouTube. Just did a YouTube. I think WWE's doing that. I think they're moving a lot of stuff to YouTube, which is a pretty smart move on their part. They can still make money off of it and stuff like that. I think that's a good move. Undertaker didn't win, but Brock didn't win either. That would have been a more... Oh, you're talking about if they had just done like a no contest. I see what you're saying. I don't know. Like, I hate no contests at WrestleMania. You know, it's like WrestleMania 2. A lot of people forget the very first match, which was Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Don the Rock Morocco, ended in a countout. And the crowd just buried him. Like, they were chanting things that you wouldn't think you would have heard back in the 80s. It was not pretty. Not pretty. The guy primed to go over at the time was Bray Wyatt. Storyline passing the torch. That'd be WrestleMania 31. 30, I think Bray faced John Cena. Lost to John Cena. 31... Bray faced Taker and lost to Taker. Bray did not have a real good track record. And I don't know what the hell the Firefly Funhouse match was, but he won that, I guess. It was fun. It was entertaining. I still don't, it wasn't a match, though. It was just like a nightmare sequence. All right. Benny, I haven't forgotten about you, buddy. I promise. I do have a question for you. What made that SummerSlam match in 2014 where he just annihilated John Cena, what made that so effective? Was it kind of the shock of it? Was it the brutality? Was it the fact that it was Brock over John Cena, who was the man at that time? What is it about it that made that so effective?
it was everything you just said. 16, I believe, if I counted right, 16 German suplexes, two F5s. It was, I think, the most one-sided championship match ever. I mean, it was the equivalent of Superstar Billy Graham against Frankie Williams. Just utter brutality and destruction.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it was all of the above.
My buddy Greg, I remember we were watching, we watched it. And my buddy Greg was like, that was awesome. He loved it. And I think at the time there were a lot of us that were like, we were kind of over John Cena. There was a lot of times when I just did not like John Cena. I thought he was over. I don't know the right word for it, but it's you know when they talk about that it factor, it's something you just can't put your finger on. My dislike for John Cena was something I just couldn't put there wasn't just one particular reason. There was just his presentation was stale and off for me. His Super Cena act I just never bought into. Like at least with Hogan, his hulking up was entertaining, right? And there was a showmanship about it. And he's actually lost after hulking up. A lot of people forget that. You guys know Hogan's lost after hulking up? Like he lost to The Rock. He lost to the Ultimate Warrior. He's lost after hulking up. Once Super Cena arrives, it's over. And I'll never forget the SummerSlam where he's facing off against NXT the Nexus. And it was John Cena and his group versus the Nexus. And they go out on the floor and they like DDT him on the concrete floor. And like 2 minutes later, Cena makes his comeback and the match is over. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, no. I did not like that. And I'm going to say something that I have to I mentioned to a couple guys I was not happy. I just want to say this real quick before I forget because I don't want to dwell on it later. I want to say that I reached out to a couple guys. I said I did not like the ending of the Brock Lesnar Obafemi match. It didn't feel as impactful as I thought it should. I felt Obafemi no-sold the tombstone on the wood. I want to say after rewatching it, I feel slightly different. I feel like I just feel like Oba should have hit his final powerbomb on the wood, and that one thing would have made it all. But I looked at it again, and Oba didn't necessarily no-sell the tombstone. It was more of he kicked out, adrenaline kicked in, and he slowly got back up and made his comeback. So I just want to throw that out there because as we're talking about Super Cena and hulking up, that's just me. I just want to make that statement very clear because I at first I hated it. I thought it was absolutely horrible. And I was just like, no, that was terrible ending. CM Punk and Cody Rhodes should have main evented that night. I don't care if it was Brock's final match or not. Like I was so bad at that moment. All right. Well, let's keep moving though. All right. And after I do my next little bit here, we're going to move into Suplex City, the long Universal Championship reign, the Roman Reigns rivalry, the part-time champion debate, and the question that followed Brock for the rest of his career. Did his dominance elevate WWE, or did it make too many full-time stars feel secondary? So before we jump into that, my buddy Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot. Chris, say hello real quick so we can get you on the screen.
Hello?
All right. What? I don't see him yet.
What happened?
There he is. Okay, there's Chris. Chris, I want you to do me a favor. You ready for this? I'm putting you on the spot here. I want you to take care of my next promotion. You ready?
Okay.
All right. Tell them all about DDPY Fast Track Coaching, brother.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, I can promote this. 100%. I was looking for something when I joined DDPY that would keep me away from my old self and my old excuses. And so Seeing that the fast track program was available, I've talked about this before, but the word fast track appealed to me because I was like, okay, the job I worked for had a fast tracking through our ranks to get promoted. And so I was like, okay, if this is a real fast track system, then I need something like this to get me going. I really want to have a transformation. I really want to have success with this. I didn't invest into DDPY for nothing. And I looked through the catalog of available coaches. The reason I'm sitting here right now is because your video, Pat, appealed to me, appealed to the pro wrestling fan inside of me and the comic book nerd inside of me. And then your story was very similar to mine, and I felt the amount of weight that you lost and the physical transformation that you had was something that I wanted to emulate. And so I hired you, and honestly, just to everybody watching, I don't regret a penny of it. I don't regret a minute of it. Pat helped me change my life, but for anybody looking into the fast track program, Pat was outstanding. He really does take the time to care about what you're going through. The morning messages were pivotal. I have, in fact, started doing that with my own brother.
Nice.
Giving him morning messages and stuff. So, yeah, anybody that's looking for that extra help, that support, that buddy in your corner, that person that's not going to let you fail, I owe my whole success. You have to be proud of the work that you put in, and people tell me all the time, you're the one that did the work, dude. But I look at the fast track coach and Pat as a catalyst for my work that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Maybe I would have gotten there, but it would have taken a lot longer.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, guys. And if you want to check out Fast Track Coaching, just head on over to ddpyoga.com, and you'll find me there under the Fast Track program. And again, I can help you with get real results through real dedication, real confidence, through weight loss, strength, flexibility, and accountability. All right, guys, but let's keep moving here because this is our pro wrestling spotlight of the career of the Beast, Brock Lesnar. And here we go. At WrestleMania 31, Brock defended the championship against Roman Reigns and turned the phrase Suplex City into an identity. 31 is also remembered from Seth Rollins' very memorable Money in the Bank cash-in, and it protected Brock from taking the fall and created one of the greatest WrestleMania endings ever. And from that point forward, Brock's schedule became part of the character. He did not appear every week, and that rarity made each entrance feel important. I want you to remember that, because this is kind of more of the old school pro wrestling mentality, remembering who is an attraction and what it means to be an attraction. We don't need to see guys on our television every week. In fact, when we don't, it makes their appearance more effective. Now, he completed a violent trilogy with The Undertaker, defeated stars across generations, and later held the Universal Championship for roughly 500 days. He won Money in the Bank in 2019, crushed Kofi Kingston in a highly controversial match in seconds to win the WWE Championship. He collided with Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania 36, reinvented himself as the ponytailed cowboy Brock, and won the 2022 Royal Rumble, and repeatedly returned to the rivalry with Roman Reigns, including the tractor-assisted Last Man Standing spectacle at SummerSlam in 2022. By the end of his career, WWE officially credited Lesnar as a 7-time WWE champion, a 3-time Universal champion. The resume is outstanding. The debate is whether the formula strengthened the championships with his frequent time away or trapped the rest of the roster beneath a star who was rarely there. So, Doc, I'm going to start with you. Did Brock's limited schedule make him feel more special? Or did it weaken weekly television and the World Championships?
That's a real good question because, you talked about how Hogan didn't wrestle every week back in the day, but I always remember Hogan giving at least a promo. They would at least get him on TV with a little promo where he would be selling his next match, selling his rivalry, which I think would have helped Brock Lesnar when he was holding the belt. I think it's important to keep that championship in the public's eye, at least through a promo, build up the next upcoming match,
right?
Which they had Paul Heyman do quite a bit. And so we had Paul on TV, but we didn't have Brock. But at the same time, I think they were trying to do more what WWF did with Andre back in the day, and the territories did back in the day with Andre the Giant. When Andre the Giant, he wasn't on TV all the time. He wasn't mentioned all the time. He definitely wasn't cutting promos all the time. So when Andre would show up, it would feel special. So there's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I remember Roman Reigns giving a promo on Brock not being there all the time. And, I felt that one. I felt that promo because I was like, yeah, this guy's not on TV. And with his historic kind of disdain of the business from the era Chris was talking about earlier, I think maybe that went against him a little bit being a part-timer,
right?
Where it's like, yeah, he's just here for another paycheck. So, it's 6 of one, half of a dozen of the other for me. Yeah. I guess it evens out.
And you made a really good point when you talked about the fact that, Hogan would do those promos and stuff. And I think there's another thing we need to talk about. Like, Brock being part-time when he's just a wrestler is one thing. But there is a different thing about being the champion, right? Like, I think when you're the champion, I think we all kind of feel like there's a responsibility to be there, right?
Yeah, you're the face of the company when you've got that belt.
From growing up, it was always when you were the champ, you were everywhere. You weren't just on television. You were also out doing interviews. You were on late night talk shows. You were on radio. You were making the rounds, promoting the company. And you were, like you said, you were the face of the company. And Brock was not that for at any point. Brock was not that guy. And so, yeah, very good points there. Benny, I want to know which version was the best character in your opinion of Brock? You have the next big thing. You've got the Conqueror. You've got Suplex City Brock, which is similar to the Conqueror. Are you looking at me, Doc? Or is it Cowboy Brock that we got to see at the end of the career? Which version of Brock was your favorite?
I think each one of them represent a true aspect of his real personality. But I'm kind of partial to Cowboy Brock because it really seemed like he was enjoying himself. And the guy is, he probably owns half of Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
He's a rancher. I like when he, with the cowboy hat and the jeans. Although he split his jeans a couple of times, but splitting your jeans is a little bit better than doing something else with your jeans that rhymes with splitting. But no, Cowboy Brock for me.
All right. And Chris, here's another great question, I think. Of course, it's a great question. I'm asking it. Which opponent brought out Brock's best in his second run? We've got Roman Reigns, The Undertaker, John Cena, Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Finn Balor, Cody Rhodes. Who do you think brought out the best of the Beast in his second run?
Yeah, I would say that. First of all, can you hear me? My meeting kind of wigged out.
I can hear you. You're still very quiet, but I can hear you. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the meeting wigged out. The Zoom meeting wigged out. No, I would. It's hard to put an opponent to say they brought the best out of him. My answer would be Roman Reigns. And that's to go back on a little bit of what Benny said. My favorite version of Brock Lesnar was also the Cowboy, because to go back on a little bit on what I said, is that was when Brock was starting to show his maturity as a person, and like Benny said, he was starting to have a little bit more fun. You could see that the person Brock Lesnar was caring way less about his accolades and was having fun with the business. And I wish he'd have found that way earlier. I wish because he would have, to me, he would have been so entertaining as a person that was just there to have a good time with everybody, instead of a person that was, like Doc said, it really felt like he was just there to collect a paycheck. He was just there to be Brock Lesnar. He was just there to be the spectacle, part-time belt, championship match at SummerSlam, and then go home for the rest of the year. And whether or not he was a spectacle or a Hulk Hogan and only needed to wrestle a couple matches, or the WWE Championship, I completely agree with the fact that where he wasn't making appearances, where he wasn't making the weekly promos and promoting the business and being the face of the company and stuff like that, I just had a really hard time getting down with the guy. So that last run with Roman Reigns, where Paul Heyman was still promoting the Brock Lesnar as being the best thing ever, and we were just off of. I mean, Paul Heyman was with the Bloodline and with Roman Reigns, so there was a little bit of a Paul Heyman back and forth between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. And then I think the best version of Brock came out after Roman Reigns and towards the end of his career. So I think that second run and with Roman was the one that really just evolved Brock as a person. But I don't know that I would give Roman that credit for it. I think Brock just started to mature as a person.
All right. Hey, good points. Very good points. All right. Hey, Doc, let's say something and jump on the screen for me here.
Yeah. What's up?
Well, you're watching the live chat, right?
Yes.
You are the Diamond Standard. You are the voice here. Would you like to make a statement to Mr. Kevin Abreu?
Oh, I was hoping. I was thinking about typing something. You know what, Jabroni? Why don't you step into the ring and take a bump or two? You can come up to NorCal. I will introduce you to a man who is 6'7" tall, 500 pounds, named Bad News Blakesley, or the 6'4", 300-pounder Shaq Wolf. And you can tell me how fake wrestling is after getting in the ring with them, you armchair jabroni. Why don't you, you know what? I'm just going to sum it up by saying this. Kevin Abreu, you smell like food stamps.
There it is. There it is. That was the moment I was waiting for there. Well done, Doc. So there's your answer, Kevin. You throw out the F-bomb in the live chat on our show. You shall feel the wrath of Doc. But Doc, if you weren't on the show, I would have had to say something. We don't have that much time left. Because everybody should know, if I was the one doing it, it would go on we'd have to cancel the whole last segment here. So
Pat Sims with a 15-minute promo.
Yeah. I can go. All right, let's keep moving though, and let's finally wrap this up with the one last destruction and Oba Femi, the final run and the passing of the torch. After a 2-year absence, And again, we're not getting into a lot of the why. Brock returned at SummerSlam 2025 and targeted John Cena during Cena's retirement tour. At WrestlePalooza, Lesnar delivered 6 F5s in another near total destruction, more than a decade after SummerSlam 2014. Brock had now produced 2 unforgettable one-sided victories over the defining WWE star of his generation. Then came Oba Femi. Oba answered Brock's WrestleMania 42 Open Challenge and defeated him. Brock left his gloves and boots in the ring, suggesting the end, but then returned after a short time and attacked Oba and won their rematch at Clash in Italy. The rivalry reached its conclusion inside Hell in a Cell at this year's SummerSlam in Minnesota. Main eventing night 1. Oba Femi defeated Brock Lesnar, and afterward Brock embraced him and called him the future of WWE, and saying, I am the past, Oba is the future. 3 days later, on August 4th, Brock Lesnar appeared on the Pat McAfee show and announced that he is officially retired, confirming that the SummerSlam match with Oba Femi was his final match. That makes this decision unusually timely. We're not guessing about how Brock's story might end. We've just seen it. Now, does this mean that all the rumors that we talked about last week about Brock finishing his career at WrestleMania 43, does that mean that that's all not going to happen now? Not necessarily, because this is pro wrestling. Anything can happen in pro wrestling. You're also talking about Saudi money. And who knows if they're able to write a big enough check to make Brock come back one more time. But I think that Brock has ended his career. I believe in that. I think Brock is ready to go home, and that's it. I don't think Brock is going to be wrestling again at WrestleMania. I think Oba is now on his upward trajectory, so now it's time to look towards the future. Benny, did the 2025 destruction of John Cena add anything meaningful to their rivalry? Or was that past SummerSlam in 2014 already that definitive statement?
Well, the first thing I'd like to say, but I will temper this because this is a family-friendly show.
Yes.
That any wrestler saying they were retiring is one of the 3 greatest lies of all time. I'll only give you one of the other 2. The other one is the check's in the mail. I'll leave the third one to your imagination. I think you know what it is.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, I did not understand the psychology of it. I got the first one. I did not understand why they did what they did at this one. And it was pretty brutal, like you said.
Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is that they did it to reestablish Brock's dominance because he hadn't wrestled. I think it was like 25 months.
Yeah.
SummerSlam 2023 when he lost to Cody. So in order for, the value of Oba Femi winning a program against Brock Lesnar, it needs a very strong Brock Lesnar. And I think maybe they were looking towards the future, and they did it for that reason, so that when he passed the torch, he was passing the torch, still as a huge monster. And so that's the only reason that I can think of why they would have done that.
Yeah, and I wasn't a big fan of the John Cena tour, like the retirement tour. It took away a lot of the what's going to happen here, and it became all about John Cena instead of all of everything that was going on around John Cena, right? Brock Lesnar coming and destroying John, like you said, that sets up the future of when Oba Femi dominates Brock. It's all the more effective, all the more powerful. If Brock and John have a back and forth brawl, that might have been a much better match, obviously. We would have all been much more entertained by that. But how it went down sets up Oba and Brock better. And, everybody else was just complaining because, oh, this is John's last run. He shouldn't be squashed in his last run. Well, it's because pro wrestling isn't about one guy. And we made it about one guy. Well, not all of us, but a lot of WWE fans made that entire tour, that retirement tour, about one guy and forgot about everything else going on around it. And WWE did, to an extent, too, to its detriment. Chris, was the 3-match Oba Femi series the right final program for Brock Lesnar? I think we can all agree that it's the right move for Oba Femi. Do you think that it was the right ending for Brock Lesnar?
I do. I thought their intention with the Oba Brock series was perfect.
Good.
For a send off, for an up and comer. I thought the execution was a little weird. And I don't know, maybe there was some behind the scenes scheduling and booking things that caused the storyline to be executed a little bit weird. But if we're playing fantasy football here, I would have had Brock lose that Mania match and not remove his gear. I would have had Brock throw a tantrum that he lost, making the drama of Brock being unstoppable come back, yelling at Paul that he lost, needing a rematch. He can't, all of that. Then that builds Brock v. Oba 2, and then we build Brock v. Oba 3 for the Hell in the Cell. That's when the gloves come off. That's when the flowers are sent. That's when the shock, oh my God, Brock is retiring. Because I remember crying at WrestleMania.
Right.
Not liking Brock. I remember crying because of the art of the business, and the way he did that send-off at WrestleMania was so perfect that it should have happened at SummerSlam, and it should have capped that story. So I thought the execution of the back and forth and the timing of, is Brock done? Is he not done? Is he coming back? And then them quickly doing Oba versus Brock 1, 2, and then 3, and then just building up to that SummerSlam match. I thought it was booked poorly, just written poorly, but I thought the idea of who it was and how they did it, I thought was the best way they could have ended that.
All right. Well, Doc, I want to ask you about that, because that was my question for you. Did Oba truly receive the passing of the torch, or would the moment have been stronger had Brock Lesnar only lost the WrestleMania match and stayed retired?
Yeah, well, I didn't watch any of these because notoriously I haven't been watching WWE for the last few years. I was very, very busy with PCW and haven't been really involved with the characters in WWE. But yeah, I would agree with Chris. I from what I hear, it sounds like the booking was a little awkward. Brock may have done what Undertaker did and looked at the last match at WrestleMania and said, you know what, I don't want to go out like that. Let's build it up a little bit more. But I think the way he handled it at SummerSlam, embracing Oba Femi and saying this guy is the future, I think that's the right thing to do when you go out. You put over the next big thing, which is clearly Oba Femi. Everyone's talking about him. So a little wonky booking. Maybe TKO wanted to milk more out of it. Difficult to say at this point.
Yeah, I almost feel like, and then we're going to start closing this out here, but I kind of felt like either they needed to keep it, Brock retires at WrestleMania. I think it was always the plan for Brock and Oba to do the 3-match series. I don't think the plan was Brock was going to retire. I think that was all planned out. I think much like what we talked about, Benny, when we talked about the summer of Punk, I think if you're going to do something like that, keep Brock away for a longer period of time. Make us actually believe he's retired so that when he does return, it's a shock. Have Brock go on a retirement interview tour and tell the world he's retired like he's doing now. Go on the Pat McAfee show and go, I'm retired, guys. And then a month before SummerSlam, have him attack Obafemi and challenge him at SummerSlam. I think there's a better way to have approached it, like Chris said. But I think that whenever you do these, oh, this guy's going away, he's retired, he's gone, he's leaving, and then you bring him back a couple weeks later, it just doesn't work. And we never seem to learn from our mistakes here. So, Grandmaster says originally they wanted Brock to pass the torch to Braun Breaker. Then they switched it to Gunther. And then they switched it to Obafemi. I do remember a lot of talk about Gunther. I don't remember a lot of talk about Braun, but that would make sense. But just from on paper standpoint, from a storyline standpoint, it makes zero sense. Gunther was retiring everybody, and so it kind of made sense there. But I'm glad they did what they did with Oba. I think it works better with Oba. I think people, instead of Gunther being elevated as this top heel, unfortunately, it just turned into, we hate Gunther. Like, when he got announced as being added to that match at SummerSlam and they turned it into a fatal four-way for the number one contenders match, when they added him, the crowd went dead. Like, they were not happy about that. And then when Kevin Owens returned, the whole place lost their minds. But Gunther's in a weird spot right now. And I think that something's got to change with Gunther. And I don't know what that is or what that needs to be, but the way they presented him as the guy that goes out and ends everyone's career, that did not work out the way that I think anybody thought it might. And maybe it's because of him. Maybe it's his character and all that stuff, but I don't know. That something's gravely missing from Gunther's presentation. But let me wrap this up here. And I want to say that for me, Brock Lesnar's legacy is not that he was the greatest technical wrestler. Obviously, he's not the greatest talker. He's not the most dependable weekly performer. His legacy is that no one else combined elite amateur wrestling, freakish athleticism, professional wrestling stardom, NFL ambition, UFC championship legitimacy, and rare event presence in quite the way that Brock Lesnar did it. There's a lot of guys we've looked at and we've talked about, like, if you were going to build a professional wrestler, right? Brock is one of those prototypes, as John Cena used to be known as, right? I think Sid Vicious was a guy. He had the look. And I actually love Sid on the mic. I love Sid on the mic. In the ring, haha. Brock is kind of the guy you can go, this is Vince's dream wrestler right here. If he could copy and paste that would be his ultimate dream. At his best, Brock made professional wrestling feel dangerous, unpredictable, and bigger than the normal weekly format. At his most frustrating, his dominance and limited schedule could make the rest of the roster feel like they were competing in a whole nother universe. But both truths belong in the final evaluation. But from the next big thing to the man who called Obafemi the future, Brock Lesnar leaves behind a career that is going to be impossible to duplicate and may never even be attempted again. Now, I want to take a moment to say thank you to everyone listening on WANT Radio. If you want to listen to WANT Radio, they're available 24/7. They have music, comedy, talk shows, you name it. They've got it. And they're available at WANTradio.com or download the Live 365 app, and you can just search for WANT Radio there. And, of course, the Positively Pat Sim Show, let me remind you guys, is going to be shifting to Ringside Revolution very, very soon. Maybe not this week, but in the very near future, we are going to be rebranding this show, and this YouTube channel is going to be specifically pro wrestling oriented. All of our other shows are moving to their own YouTube channels. Warriors Unleashed Live will be available on Facebook, so make sure you check those out. And that's going to be an incredible time, an incredible moment. I'm going to give each of our very special guests a chance to say goodbye, and I want to thank them individually. First, I want to start off by thanking the Diamond Standard, Doc Heywood. Doc, your final words for the Sims Nation.
Yeah, folks, as we said at the top of the show, and when Pat was plugging his album, after you get Pat's album, get one of my 4 albums. I'm streaming on Amazon, iTunes. Just search for Doc Heywood, Dr. Heywood. And if you're looking for a shirt after you get some yoga pants on Pat's store, I'm wearing one of the new designs right now. Tomb of Docula, my Halloween alter ego. When I put on the red sunglasses, the fangs come out. You want to get it, go to prowrestlingtees.com. Look for Take It Twice Tees, twice spelled with a 2, W-I-C-E, the letter 2, not T-W-O, 2, W-I-C-E, Take It Twice Tees. You can get Docula. You can get a You Smell Like Food Stamps shirt, which I highly recommend you get to wear around anyone who says wrestling is fake.
All right, love it. All right, and our next guest, I want to say a big thank you to the most prepared guest, the prognosticator of prognosticators, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Benny Scala. Benny, your final words for our Sims Nation.
Yeah, great show today. Love talking about Brock Lesnar. Just want to let everybody know, on Monday night, I'm doing True Crime with the Bad Girl, the Playa, and Dangerous Dave. Our subject on Monday night is the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. If there was a Hall of Fame for serial killers, he'd probably be a first ballot inductee. On Wednesday, when it was real, 7:30, with Nikita Brezhnikov, our guest, we don't usually have guests, but our guest is the legendary Larry Zbyszko.
Nice.
And that should be a fun show. Friday morning, the Morning Slam session with Joe Larry. For this Friday evening at 7 o'clock, my co-host Amelia Valerio, we do a, not every week, but we're doing a Sexy Mexi and Italian Ice this Friday. Our subject is Gino Hernandez, who Amelia was absolutely infatuated with. I think she still is. Gino Hernandez, when you talk about the what if of professional wrestling, there's always 2 names that come to mind. One is Magnum, of course, Magnum TA, but the other one's Gino. What would have happened if Gino had kept his head on straight? I think he would have been one of the biggest superstars of all time. And then, of course, every Saturday, my vacation at Sims Nation.
All right. Awesome. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, a big thank you to, no, we have not forgotten, a big thank you to Christopher Hall. Chris, your final words for the Sims Nation.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun talking about the career of Brock Lesnar. Some things that I want to promote real quick that I'm working hard on right now is I'm going after my DDPY Level 1 instructor certification and my NASM Certified Personal Trainer certification, and I'm developing those brands right now. When those certifications go through and I am fully going forward, I checked the map, I will be the only DDPY Level 1 certified instructor that is also a personal trainer in the Pacific Northwest.
Nice.
So if you are in the Pacific Northwest and you are looking for ways to change your life and have somebody who's going to be there for you one-on-one and show you the ways that I did it and show you the ways to build your confidence, then look out for me. I'm not yet certified, so I'm not promoting my services yet, but I'm coming. And then the other thing that Pat mentioned, thank you so much for introducing me earlier as Christopher the Void Hall. is a character that I really want to work on and promote. I've even mentioned it to my trainers at the pro wrestling school that if we're going to start promoting and character developing, that I have an idea in mind. But yeah, the Void, if we ever get to see him come to light, is a monster that was created by society, that is coming to take the pleasure and happiness away from your favorite baby faces.
Love it.
So hold on to what you love, hold on to what you hold dear, because the Void is coming to take it away from you.
Yeah. All right, and before we close out the show, first and foremost, and no, I didn't forget, but ladies and gentlemen, from all of us here at the Positively Pat Sim Show, we would like to send our condolences to the Funk family on the passing of the great Dory Funk Jr. Dory was a fantastic professional wrestler and just a great, fantastic human being. And so we want to wish all of the Funk family our best, and it is a very sad time for the entire pro wrestling world. And then lastly, before we say goodbye, I do want to say that our results for our final poll are up, and here they are. What is Brock Lesnar's most impressive accomplishment? You're in last place, tied for last place, making the NFL preseason 7% of the vote. The NCAA championship gets 7% of the vote, so take that, NCAA. The UFC heavyweight championship, 33% of the vote. And our clear winner at 53% of the vote is being the youngest WWE champion at the time. So that is the end result from our poll. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for us on what could potentially be the final Positively Pat Sims show before we make room for Ringside Revolution. So, ladies and gentlemen, from Positively Pat Sims and all of my guests, I want to thank you for joining us and wish you a very great weekend. Just remember to take it easy, and if it's easy, take it twice. So long, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll see you next week right here. So long, everybody.
The lights are dim, but the room still hums with the echoes of laughter.